Well, welcome to week 3 of the person and work of a leader. This is the section that we're still talking about who I am. And I hope that in week 1, when you did your personal case study, that it gave you a new and fresh understanding of who you are and how all the aspects of who you are has shaped you. I hope that last week, when you looked at emotional intelligence, you came away with a new understanding of who you are, and maybe even some of the persona that is a part of leadership and how that all works together. Well, this week we want to look at strengths and what it means to be leading from your strengths. Now, I have to tell you that this is an area that I am learning a lot about in my own leadership as well. And of all the different concepts, this is the concept of Strength Finders that has helped me understand more than anything else how to be a more effective leader. So what do we mean by a strength? Well, I think strengths as a whole has been misunderstood. The whole idea behind strength-based leadership is that you capitalize on that which you're strong at and you minimize that which you're weak at. And so when you do an evaluation, instead of looking at the negative and how to improve that, you look at the positive and how can you enhance that. Strength is not something that you're good at. Strength is something that gives you energy. It's something that you do naturally, that you gravitate to, that you like to do, that you're good at doing. Talent is a natural way of thinking and feeling and behaving. Your talents are those things that just come automatically to you. And then you add an investment where you spend time and energy in developing your skills, in building your knowledge base, and your investment in that times your talent gives you the strength where you have where you have the ability to consistently provide near perfect performance. It's kind of the flow that you go in. I do this and I do this, and I just am at the top of my game. That's what your strength is. Another way to capture your strength is to simply make a list of all the tasks that you have to do in a day. And which ones do you do first? Which ones do you like to do? Those give you a little bit of an idea of your strength. So my strengths are futuristic, woo, positivity, belief, and activator. And when I was at the Gallup organization, I asked them once if they would show me my bottom 5, and I discovered that number 34 for me was deliberative. That was so helpful to me. I couldn't understand why I just hated sitting around and talking about something and not getting something done. It's because my natural tendency is, let's not talk, let's do. I'm an activator. When a problem comes my way that needs to be solved, I immediately go to looking into the future. I don't enjoy analyzing what got us there. I enjoy looking at what we can do to fix it. Now, I need to have people there analyzing how we got there, but I find myself solving problems by thinking in what could be. And then who can I attract to come to this and to help with this? Who can I woo, and what would be fun and positive to do it? Oh, and by the way, I have belief. That's just a nice word for opinions. And I can be very dogmatic and opinionated. And ask anyone that works with me, and they'll tell you, yeah, that's what President Glanzer's like. But those together are my strengths. Now think for me a moment about why people follow someone. According to Tom Rath, building trust, showing compassion, providing stability, and creating hope are the 4 things that when a leader does these 4 things, that is why people follow them. And so regardless of what strength you have, Your strengths need to be working in such a way to build trust in the lives of people, to show them compassion, to provide stability for them, and to create hope. As a leader, your number one asset in the organization that you lead are the people. That is a personal conviction of mine that is true in any organization. When you look at the people balance sheet that you have, what does that look like? Your people are your number one asset, and how you look at them will determine how they perform. But Douglas McGregor has done a lot of studies in this, and he says there's two ways to see people, and he calls them Theory X people and Theory Y people. Theory X says that people basically are lazy, that they fundamentally do not have any ambition, that they dislike work, they have tried to avoid it, they want no responsibility, they would rather follow than lead. They're self-centered, therefore they only care about themselves and not about the organizational needs. They're unmotivated, they're not creative, they resist change, they are gullible, they aren't particularly intelligent, and they need to be controlled and coerced. Essentially, Theory X says that people work only for money and security. You know anybody that looks at people this way? When you look at large corporations and organizations, can you know any corporations that look at people this way? He says there's another way to look at people, and that's what he calls Theory Y. Theory Y makes the following general assumptions: that people will be self-directed to meet their work objectives and that they commit themselves to it. They're energetic, that they commit themselves to doing things, and they always are after self-fulfillment. They're very self-motivated. They're capable. They're creative. They have a lot of potential. They can handle responsibility. Ingenuity are just common in the population. Under these assumptions, there is the opportunity to always align personal goals with organizational goals by using the employee's own quest for fulfillment as the dominating motivator. And McGregor stressed that Theory Y management does not imply soft management, but it's very difficult. So how do you see people? Do you see them as lazy, unreliable, and unmotivated? Or do you see them as capable, energetic, self-motivated with a lot of potential? Now, how you see them makes a difference. Now, I know some of you are saying, well, it's not how I see them, that's how they are. No, you can't control how they are, but you can control how you see them. Do you believe in them? They are your number one asset, and so your responsibility as a leader is to increase their value. Your talents and your gifts determine how you see them, and how it flows out will come basically around, do you manage people or do you develop them? So often I hear people talk about we have to manage the people, and we have these projects that we develop. And I would maintain and would suggest that we need to manage projects and we need to develop people. And I say that because your strengths will determine how you do that. All of the strengths, all 34, can be characterized into 4 general areas. There are those strengths that talk about executing. There are those strengths that talk about influencing. There are those that talk about relationship building. And there are those that talk about strategic thinking. These are the 4 domains of leadership strengths. Now, I would encourage you to take this chart and to identify which ones you are. Most people will have 2 of them, 2 domains that all their strengths are in, and quite a few have 3. It's quite rare to have strengths in all 4 of the areas, but these are my strengths. I have 1 executing strength, I have 2 influencing strength, I have 1 relationship building strength, and I have 1 futuristic strength. Identifying your strengths tells you more of who you are. And if your strengths are in one area, that tells you the kind of work that you should be doing. If all of your strengths aren't executing, then you should be serving in a way that is consistently executing. If it's relationship building, then you should be doing things that would help you in relationship building. Take these and list them with all the different people on your team, and you begin to see how you all fit together. I took the executive team of Tabor College to Gallup, and we had them look at all of our strengths together. He looked at the whole chart, and he said, well, you guys are great problem solvers, and you struggle with who influence. And he looked at me and he said, so who makes the decisions at the very end in this group? And all their heads turned to me. Because I and 1 other person were the only ones at that time in the group that had any influencing strengths. And we were high in executing, and we were high in strategic thinking. We were medium together as a team in relationship building, and we lacked in influencing. Only 2 of us had gifts in influencing. And so I began to realize that I need to pay attention to this when selecting executive team members. So then I looked at our faculty. The entire faculty had taken the Strength Finders, and this is the curve of what kind of strengths they have. Naturally, they have given themselves to the life of the mind, and so they are high in input, high on learner, high in achiever, high in belief. Those are the high ones for them. Responsibility, relator. That's what their strengths are. And then I put my strengths in there, and notice that most of my strengths are where there are not very many strengths in the faculty. This was incredibly helpful to me. As I looked and I said, okay, this is why there's friction between me and the faculty now and then. I'm thinking in the future, and only 1 faculty person thinks about the future. I am concerned about wooing people. That's not a strength of theirs. And so when you look at your own team and or a congregation or a group that you're leading, how does that all fit together for you? Again, all this does is gives you insights into who you are. And so I made a list, and here's the list for you to make of it. List the tasks that you as a leader do in the role that you have in leadership. And then list your strengths beside it. So I'll use mine as an example. As a college president, here are some of the tasks that I have to do. I set the tone of the college. I cast the vision. I'm involved in donor development. I lead an executive team. I'm in board development. I have 29 bosses. I orchestrate culture change for the college. I give myself to the strategic plan. I have 24 different types of 24 different types of relationships, and over half of them are external. I have to be involved in leadership development. And then all the different vice presidential functional areas that which are my direct reports. Now, beside that, I list my 5 strengths. Now, here's the question. How do the strengths impact these tasks? I want to give just an example from ministry. I've heard people often say, I'm a really good preacher. Preaching is a task. It is not a strength. But what strength, the strengths that you have, determine how you preach. And so when you listen to a person preach that has the gift of belief as their number one strength, you will hear a lot of kind of teaching mode. But if you have someone that has a gift of wooing, the preaching will sound more like a stand-up comic. I remember in the church where I was pastoring, a senior high student was asked by a friend, so what is it like to listen to someone preach? And he said, well, at our church, it's kind of like a stand-up comic that tells you something about God. And that was how he described my preaching when I preached every Sunday. It was a task that I did, but it was very obvious that the strengths that I had dominated how I spoke. And that's true for everyone. It's true for a variety of different things. Our strength is not our task. Our strength are our talents and what we've invested in and what we love to do. So I invite you to work on this chart. I invite you to lay out your tasks and how your strengths affect them. Here are the roles of a college president that every college president needs to do. I'm the chief spokesman. I'm an economist, a strategist, a connector, a relator, a catalyst, a futurist, a chief executive. Those are all 8 things that I have to do. And then my strengths impact that. Now move on and then apply not only your strengths to your task, but also to your emotional intelligence score. How do they fit together? Can you see how your strengths are reflected in your EI score? And can you see how your EI score impacts your strengths? Spend some time analyzing that, looking at that, and it helps you discover more of who you are. Finally, your strengths, your tasks and roles, your emotional intelligence, all of those flow into a funnel and describe who you are. And your being then results in doing. We've come to the end of looking at who I am. I hope that as you have looked at your history and who you are and your experiences and how God has made you and created you and shaped you, that when you look at your emotional intelligence and that interaction between understanding who you are and then managing yourself and looking at your relationships outside and then managing those and your own well-being and then your strengths, that when you bring that all together, that you begin to get a crystal clear view of this is who I am. This is who God has created me. And this is who God has made me into. And that now becomes the foundation as we begin to look at what it is that we do, because leadership is being, resulting in doing. Who you are determines how you lead, and how you lead flows from who you are.